Hey everybody, this is Mr. Storm. In this video, we are going to start building our player controller, our player character for our 3D platforming game. Before we get into that though, I want to show off kind of what I made. This is going to be my platforming level. It's very basic, but I just wanted to throw a couple shapes in there so that we can practice jumping and running up slopes and things like that. So I have some platforms here for the character to jump on. I have some ramps in the background. I have this cylinder to jump on and a sphere that's just hovering in the middle of the air. So I'm sure yours looks a lot better than mine. One thing I did do though is I organized all of these solid objects into I made them all a child of a new node 3D that I just labeled level objects. That way I can collapse that and then this menu doesn't get super busy. I'm sure your menu probably looks really busy by now. So you can do that. You can create just an empty node 3D and you can just make everything a child of that. I also have some empty node 3Ds for things like the walls. There's 4 walls around the area, so I made those a child of the walls object. Then I made platforms as well. So anyway, so that's an option. You can do that. All of these items have colliders on them, so whenever I build my character will be able to actually collide with those objects. The other things I did was I added a world environment. And in a world environment, you need to, let me go ahead and delete this one so I can show you kind of the process of building a world environment. So let's add a new world environment as a child. Now notice that there's an error here. This is basically saying to have any visible effect, then we need to create a new environment for the world environment. So over here in this option, under or next to environment, I'm going to click empty, new environment. Then I'm going to edit that environment. And the one thing I really want to take care of is this skybox here. I don't want it to be this clear color. If I did though, I could say clear color and I can change to either gray, black, or white. I don't. What I want, I could also choose custom color and then choose say like a blue. And so like the entire environment is colored that way. You could do that. You could also do sky, meaning you want to create a new skybox. That's the option I chose. And what you do with that is you need to create your sky by going to your sky options, click on the empty, click new sky. And then in this new sky option, you need to choose your sky material, which I'm going to choose a new procedural material so it creates it on its own. And so it created our basic standard procedural skybox. But in that procedural, you can change things like the color. Like maybe I want it to be a nice brighter blue. I want it to be like a nicer kind of blue. And maybe I want the horizon color to be more gray. So it feels like it's more of a nighttime. I don't know. It's up to you. You can completely play around with those options all you want. The other thing I added was a directional light 3D. It's a very easy light. Basically it acts as the sun. You can put it wherever you want in the scene, and depending on how you rotate it, it will change the angle of the light that's coming into the scene, right? So we can change the angle. I'm going to keep it like about there. Okay, so now our 3D scene is set up. Now we need to create, let me go ahead and save all of my scenes. Now we need to create our 3D player. We're not going to create it in this scene. We're going to create it in a brand new scene by itself so that we can use that player object in any level we want. So I'm going to click this plus to create a new scene, and I'm going to choose a character body 3D as my root for that scene. I'm going to go ahead and click create, and I'm going to rename this to player. Now the character body 3D needs a couple things. It needs specifically a collider. We'll get to that in a minute. But we also need to be able to see something because this is going to be a third-person character. So we need an actual character. At this point, if you were making a real game, this is probably when you would import a 3D model that was created in Blender or something that had fully articulated limbs that you can animate. We're not going to do that. We're just going to use a capsule. Okay. So I'm going to create a new mesh instance 3D. I'm going to call this, we'll call it body. And it is going to be a capsule mesh. So a new capsule mesh. There we go. Let's go ahead and make it red. So I'm going to change the material. All right. Change the albedo. Make it red. Make it a nice red color. Okay, perfect. Spider-Man. Now the hard part is going to be determining which is forward and which is backward. We want this to have some character. We want there to be a forward or backward on this character. So let's make some eyeballs. So I'm going to add a child node, and it's going to be another mesh. This one will be a sphere. I'll bring the sphere out a little bit, and let's shrink it down a lot. Let's shrink it down. That's good. We'll bring it up. Bring it over. Looks good to me. Okay. Oh, our mesh here needs a collider. Let's go ahead and... Oh, no, we'll do the collider in a second. Sorry. Let's just get through this. Let's do this first, because we're going to add a different kind of collider, and I'll show you why in a second. Okay. We'll do an eyeball there. Let's call this eye. And let's duplicate that and move it over here. They're kind of sticking out the sides because I want to be able to see the eyes from behind. It's going to look goofy from the front, but that's okay. I'm okay with it looking goofy. I just kind of want to be able to see the eyes from behind so we can make sure that we're pointing in the right direction. Okay. You're probably wondering, actually, let's do 0.5 for the size, make them a little bigger. You're probably wondering why, how do we know which way is forward? Good question. We can use these tools here to see the specific views. So left, that's a left orthogonal view, meaning we're looking to on the left side. Here's the rear, we're looking at the back side. Here's the right, we're looking on the right side. Here's the front. So this is the character from the front. I might have swapped that backward in my mind, but we'll fix it when we get to the next step. Okay, so this is my player character. I need a collider around this character. This error won't go away until I create a collider. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to add a child, and I'm going to create a collision shape 3D onto this character. And it's going to be a capsule. And I'm going to make it just slightly wider than the character. Okay. Just slightly wider than the character. Perfect. So now that error has gone away, let's rename this to Collider. The last thing we need is we need a camera. The camera is going to be attached to the player, and it's going to allow us to basically have the camera follow the player often, wherever the player goes. The problem is we need something to kind of hold the camera onto the player in the right place, because we're going to be using when we write the program for this, we're going to be writing a script that allows us to move the camera around, but we need to tether the camera to the player. To do that, we're going to use a special thing called a spring arm 3D. Spring arm 3D, spring arm 3D. There we go. And if we hover over it, it says a 3D raycast that dynamically moves its children near the collision point. So it's basically just kind of like, I don't know, like a selfie stick that we're attaching to the back of our character. And we're going to put the camera on it, and it's going to allow us to move that camera around without going outside of certain boundaries. Okay, I'm going to rename this to Cam Origin. All right, now we need to make the camera a child of this Cam Origin. So let's say camera 3D. Oh, that's camera 3D. All right, and yep, I did it backward. This is the back of our character. This is the front of our character. So if you did the same thing as me, and the way I know that is because this camera, by default, will be facing toward the front. So I haven't rotated my camera at all. I just created the camera, and it's facing toward the front. So all you have to do is grab these eyes here and then we can just whap, push them to the front of our character as opposed to the back. All right, perfect. Okay, so this camera, we want it out to be, oh, let's change the cam origin. So we want the spring length to be actually 2 meters and the margin to be 0.5. Let's do that. Let's change those options here. And notice that now we have this line connecting this camera and the character. Okay, in the camera, we can push it back just a little bit, whatever feels natural. So now we have our character. This is the 3D model with a mesh. We have the camera, we have eyeballs. So at this point, everything should be set up perfectly so that we can start writing the code. So in the next video, I'll walk you through writing the script for this object. Let's go ahead and save it while we're here. Let's save scene as player.tscn. Perfect. So once you've saved your project, then make sure you make sure everything looks like it's supposed to. And then, yeah, if you want to add other things to this character so it looks a little bit more dynamic than just a cylinder, you can add some meshes to the side or whatever you want to do. I just use the eyeballs. It's whatever you want to add. Cool. All right. Well, that's it for this video. In the next video, we will start writing the script. Thanks for paying attention.